It's a very good morning and a warm welcome to Galaxy Universal Network, Channel 500 on Starsat. Igama lami ke nguSisandi nomusa kwaqabe khutho intombazane yaphansi kwamhlabi yalingana. Mfule ngophuza ngiphuza ugelegele kanti inkomo zakithi ngeshiya zidla phansi emahlathini asekubandeni. Kanti ke zona ziphuze ebhudlini umfulo ohamba ngeslow motion. Kwesikwaziba isigodi kula ngibuya khona ke ngathola amabombo ngawafaka ubhokweni ngawabhekisa le egoli kwandonga ziyaduma. Kwanyama kayipheli kuphela amazinga endoda maqede kwenzeka umhlolo ke. Khobe unomusa kumabona kudeke. This is where we are this morning. Of course, we are broadcasting live in the Republic of South Africa. We are in Midrand, right in front of Pan-African Parliament, and this is Pan-African Morning. Thank you for joining us. If you're watching us through your social media platforms, we want to say good morning to you, bonjour, and those that are watching us, of course, on your channel 500 on Starsat. If you still do not have your decoder, please do go to your nearest supermarket and grab yourself a Starsat decoder so that you can get to watch us uninterruptedly. So, watching us through on our channel 500, and we must also of course, say thank you for allowing us to be in your homes and allowing us to be in your bedrooms, in your bathrooms, wherever you're watching us. Of course, from the top of, of Cairo to the bottom of the Cape, right here in this beautiful African continent. We want to say good morning to you and thank you for being with us. Without taking much of your time, of course, we must remind you today is hashtag clean up South Africa, hashtag clean up Mzansi, hashtag clean up corruption, hashtag clean up crime. This is the hashtag that we're pushing today. Of course, it is officially a spring day. As you can see, I'm all bright and beautiful for you, African child, so that to make sure that you enjoy your spring. And I hope that you are going to have a beautiful one as we continue our day. And tomorrow is a Heritage Day. As you can see, that this month has been, of course, a Heritage Month. But on top of that, it is also a Tourism Month. We encourage you that take a short left on a weekend and get to see your beautiful country, wherever you are in this beautiful African continent. Let's give you the news headlines without taking much of your time. Of course, the Deputy President, David Mabuza, replied to the National Assembly questions and out calling for the liquidation of Eskom, and Police Minister Bheki Cele hit hard on low-breaking liquor outlets. And 330 elephants reportedly killed by green-blue algae in Botswana. Of course, these are the stories that you're going to look into. A very unfortunate one there of the elephants. Let's give you this very first top story. The Deputy President, David Mabuza, finally sent his replies to the questions of the members of the National Assembly after weeks of absence due to health conditions he went through during the period of appearing before the Assembly on question and answers session. And of course, the replies submitted by Mabuza were based on questions relating, among others, the moral generation, or rather moral regeneration movement in the post-COVID-19 South Africa, and the coordination between the three spheres of government for successful service delivery and government procurement in stimulating township and rural economy. In his response to a question relating to collaboration between the three spheres of government for improved service delivery, Mabuza pointed out that although that the Constitution is clear on interdependence and relatedness of the three spheres of government in the certain areas, misalignment and patterns of working in silos have, of course, persisted, often resulting in inefficient patterns of infrastructure investment and blurred lines of accountability, thus making it difficult for monitoring and oversighting of government programs. He also responded to the questions from the official opposition parties about his role on patron of the moral regeneration movement. In his response, Mabuza emphasized that government's position is clear and is also unrelenting. Of course, that the corruption in its all forms and manifestation, of course, must be completely eradicated. Now, moving on with our stories, the Home Affairs Department has been condemned for suspending one of their senior officials, Amanda Ledwaba, for her involvement in investigating foreign nationals who allegedly obtained South African citizens fraudulently. Of course, the Project Support Association of South Africa called out Home Affairs, of course, office, saying that the suspension is very questionable. The association says that the decision to suspend Ledwaba is uncalled for, revealing that Ledwaba is known for integrity and, of course, her commitment to her job. Ledwaba became popular after refusing a 1 million bribe from a foreign national and called the Hawks on the scene to deal with the perpetrator who attempted to bribe her.
First of all, we are very much concerned about the allegations of suspension of Advocate Ledwaba. First of all, let me just give this short background to say that, back in about 10 years ago, it took us, a lot of effort to have the DG like Mavuso Msimang and also later Apleni to put Department of Home Affairs in a situation that is able to serve the country. So we are very disappointed that in a shorter space of time, we see this kind of regress, whereby, honest employees such as Advocate Ledwaba, who are doing their job, they are now being harassed and victimized just to make sure that they uphold the law, they actually implement the Immigration Act in totality. There has been incidents where Advocate Ledwaba has been involved in this kind of high-profile cases that he has been investigating, where she even at a point, in one incident, she was even offered 1 million rand in cash, and she refused. She even called the Hawks into the scene so that those are involved are arrested. But suddenly you get, these kind of charges that says that she caused investigations into some of the foreign nationals. What kind of a charge is that? Because if somebody's functions is to investigate those kind of conduct as an immigration officials, this person is a director. Her responsibility is to make sure that also immigration officials uphold the law. But now she's been victimized and harassed or even told to be suspended because she's doing her job. And we find this very shocking, and we believe that if at any point the department is going to hold her before any disciplinary hearing, we challenge the department that they make it public so that the public also can judge, because Home Affairs is key to this country. Once you have an immigration that is not able to perform his function or her function, then you must know that we must just as much as just open the borders, let everybody have a free movement, and we must just leave that issue of defense, because people will have a free roaming between this.
We need more of Ledwabas, of course, to curb this issue of illegal immigration in this country, because, there are a whole lot of, people that have got access to South African identities, which they acquire them quite fraudulently. So to see the good work that is being done by people like Ledwaba, we want to commend him for doing that. And, of course, we hope that Home Affairs will retract their decision to suspend him for doing good work. Now, as we continue with our stories, of course, the University of South Africa has launched the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs. UNISA Vice-Chancellor Professor Mandla Makhanya said that the school was aimed at nurturing and producing thought leaders and change agents to develop the continent. The former President Thabo Mbeki expressed his gratitude, saying that South Africa is in great need of independent and critical thought leaders. And of course, Mbeki said that he is humbled to have his name attached to the institution.
Art and the engineer of NEPAD. So at this point in time, I hand over to President Thabo Mbeki.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate UNISA, including its council, the Senate, the SRC, the unions, for the bold step they've taken to establish the Thabo Mbeki African School on Public and International Affairs. And indeed, I must say also I'm very humbled that you've decided to attach my name to this important school. A college library at Dar es Salaam University has a number of doctoral theses and master's dissertations produced by Tanzanian scholars. And it's important to note that these are theses and dissertations presented at various universities in Tanzania, in South Africa, in China, in Germany, in the US, in UK, by Tanzanian scholars. And here are a few examples of these theses and dissertations. One is on early career academics, personal, professional experiences within a neoliberal context, a case of the University of Dar es Salaam. Another one is about employability of higher education institution graduates, exploring the influence of entrepreneurship education and employability skills development program activities in Tanzania. Another is about perceptions of climate change, environmental variability, and the role of agricultural adaptation strategies by small-scale farmers in Africa. And yet another is a taxonomic study of selected aloe species of Tanzania and the associated indigenous knowledge. And yet another is an analysis of the factors in soil water management practices of smallholder farmers in a particular district of Tanzania. And then there's a modeling optimal control of a threatened prey-predator system, a case of the wildebeest lion prey-predator relationship in the Serengeti ecosystem. And yet another is an assessment of concentrations of trace and toxic heavy metals in soil and vegetables grown in the vicinity of Manyoni uranium deposit, again in Tanzania. And yet another is a mathematical modeling and optional control of malaria. I've cited these doctoral theses and dissertations because over many years, a number of our educationists on the continent have expressed grave concern about what they said was a failure of our universities to produce new and relevant knowledge. For instance, in 2009, the association
The former president have touched on a very important issue, of course, the issue of unemployment of the graduates, and he further elaborated and said the following.
For continental solutions to health, education, water, climate change, energy, and food security, all of them being indices for sustainable development. And it says where research has been conducted in relevant areas, the findings have remained largely on the shelves and unavailable to those who need to take action or to implement the often useful recommendations. In 2011, the outstanding scholar Ghulam Muhammad Bai, former Secretary General of the Association of African Universities, former President of the International Association of Universities, and former Vice Chancellor of the University of Mauritius, he wrote that most faculty undertake research for personal gain with the aim of publishing in international refereed journals for promotion purposes. The chosen topic is often not appropriate to national development. Most faculty do their research as individuals, and there is insufficient multidisciplinary research, which is essential for solving developmental problems. And much of the research is externally funded, and being determined by the funders, the topics may not be of direct relevance to national development. And he said research publication comprises another challenge. Most of the research results end up on university library shelves in theses and dissertations or advanced research journals. They are thus not accessible to or understood by policymakers or communities. While respecting these comments by
Meanwhile, the member of the UNISA Council, Mr. Busani Mngcwabeni, or rather Mcaweni, said that the message of support on behalf of UNISA Council. Have a look.
Mr. Vice Chancellor, Professor Mandla Makhanya, and the members of Council and management in the University of South Africa, distinguished guests locally and internationally, we are very excited as the Council of UNISA to be seeing the birth of this initiative. The initiative is great, not only because it is named and endorsed by a great leader of a continent, but like the great River Nile, we are sure that this institution, which is fed by tributaries, which is 4 institutions that existed here, including Timali, will become great, like the Nile, fed by these 4 big tributaries from which its merger, it has been created. We have great expectations of this new school. Our expectation is that it will produce great leaders of the continent who think and deliver their people with diligence, but also from a research point of view, we're looking forward to an institution that produces not just basic research, but advanced scholarship, counter-hegemonies that will help us shape the thinking and rethink how we have been doing things over the years. That is our expectation. The products of this institution are the ones who will occupy many offices in the public and private sector and other endeavors of life, and that the counter-hegemony that will be produced here in the form of research will shape the scholarship and thinking in the continent and beyond. So my responsibility is a very simple one: to congratulate the leadership of the institution for eventually pulling this all together. This is a great event indeed. There are big expectations that will come out of this institution. As UNISA, we're hoping that it will put us in the prime spot in terms of research and scholarship. We're hoping for great partnerships between ourselves and other institutions locally and internationally. And ours is to assure the patron of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation that this idea is in good hands here in the institution at UNISA, and as council, we are fully behind it, and we look forward to getting great minds from the continent and beyond coming to share perspective with the students here. Once again, thank you very much to all of you for joining us today, and may the Thabo Mbeki School live long. Thank you.
Moving on with our stories, the organization Undoing Tax Abuse has called on government to liquidate South African Airways airline. And of course, the outer says that there are no more reason for the government to continuously pour funds into the failed state-owned entity. The organization continued saying that it is a waste of taxpayers' money to continue funding the airline. Meanwhile, practitioners assigned with the SAA task revealed that the government has committed to funding the airline with a massive 10.5 billion South African rands. Have a look.
Irresponsible to throw more money at SAA. At the end of the day, they're talking about 24.9 billion rand for the business rescue plan. That is just to pay debt back and obviously to put some good severance packages together for the workforce that unfortunately have to lose their jobs. But, that's not to resuscitate SAA completely. There's a lot of extra costs that they haven't really spoken about. We're talking about 2.1 billion rand that's required for instance, the subsidiaries of SAA, an additional 6.4 billion rand to cover the projected losses for the first 3 years. So again, we're going into resuscitating an airline which is probably not at the best time for that kind of business sector, especially with COVID-19 still being rife. Our economy is upside down. It is really difficult to understand why more billions of taxpayers' monies will be thrown at the problem.
Moving on, of course, with our stories, there is some hope for struggling workers and businesses that have not received money from the Unemployment Insurance Fund. Employers will have until the end of October to submit their claims. Payments stopped 2 weeks ago after the Auditor General found millions awarded to ineligible people. Temporarily employee relief scheme, or rather relief scheme, and of course will resume this week. And in April, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced that there is a 500 billion South African rands relief package to mitigate the effect of the lockdown. The business were dealt with a major blow when an unemployment insurance fund suspended payments due to irregularities. UIF Acting Commissioner Marsha Bronkhorst said that the money is being recouped from those that, of course, benefited from it wrongly. And the reopening of the TERS schemes has come as a huge relief for businesses.
The people who had been deceased were paid, people who are incarcerated were paid, children younger than 15 years were paid. So there were a number of challenges around the verification of identity numbers. Up to this far, employers have repaid 2.144 billion rands in money that was wrongly paid over. And we have also appointed a forensic auditing company to follow the money into each.
Police Minister Peggy Cele has condemned the liquor outlet owners who have been breaking the regulations. And of course, he says that the operations have revealed disturbing tricks owners employ in order to avoid getting caught. And now that the minister said that since they are aware of these tricks, they will not hesitate to force entry into such places should they discover any place doing such.
I want to express my shock and discuss about the blatant disregard of the health of our people by some liquor outlets owners. I'm talking about the business that choose to flout the rules in the name of profit. This past weekend, I joined the operations checking on the compliance in the Ekurhuleni in the Gauteng province. During the multidisciplinary operations between SAPS, SANDF and provincial traffic law enforcement, we came across several shebeens and taverns operating way past the stipulated 10 p.m. curfew under level 2. More disturbing was the practice of some liquor outlets squeezing petrol inside their venues with shut windows and doors. This is done to look as if the business is closed for the night. Meanwhile, drinking and socializing is in the confined space ongoing until the early hours of the morning. Establishments in other parts of the country are undertaking the illegal practice that is putting money before people's health. This is what they do. They shut all the doors, they shut all the windows, and the drinking and consumption of alcohol continues. So we want to make the point very clear. We knock to these areas, but if we are correct and our information is correct, we would not hesitate to get enforced access to those places to make sure that those people are saved. So the better way of not us having enforced access is that people must just obey the law. When you close, let the people go and don't keep the people there as your slaves to continue to do things that they are not supposed to do because you want extra money. I also know that it is not only taverns that are breaking the rules. Some restaurants and eateries are also flouting the rules, putting their customers at risk of.
Public Works Minister Patricia de Lille says that she was born to fight corruption and she will not be stopped by corrupt individuals from doing what she was born to do. The response comes after the allegations of corruption were leveled against her and also the claims of interference and abusing her office power. She said that she cannot be silent, of course, when she sees people doing wrong.
They can't handle me because I am disturbing the crooks. I am disturbing them from being corrupt. And that is why they are ganging up now. There's a fight back of saying the minister's interfering. I'm making interventions when I see things are going wrong. And I will continue to intervene when I see things are wrong. Because at the end of the day, I have put it in the key performance areas of all the senior management. I have put in there that for the current financial year, we must have an unqualified to a clean audit. Something that I think some of them can't even spell, how to get a clean audit. So I'm not perturbed. My mission in life has always been to root out corruption, and I will go after the corrupt. And that's why they are accusing me of interfering. Certainly not surprised. What I do know is that the president also, again, with myself, we wrote this constitution of this country. And the president has got far more sense not to go against the Constitution. Unlike the DA, who in my case have violated the Constitution, They violated their own constitution. They didn't follow due process. And 4 court cases I won against them. So I'm really not perturbed by the DA. They are like in a divorce, you know, you always have a bitter partner. They still can't accept, like the KZN leader said the other day, they are permanently angry. So I can't be bothered with this. I am there to serve.
Yeah, well, Zille, born to fight corruption. We'll see to watch that, of course, as it unfolds. Going on with our stories, the city of Cape Town has released the dam level statistics, which show that the dam capacity for the Cape Town Metro rose from 96.4% to 98.2%. The total capacity of the dam supplying the metro increased to 98.2% between 14 September and 21 September 2020. A 1.8% rise from previous week. A city added that the water consumption for the same period increased by 19 million litres per day from an average of 647 million litres, which is spent per day the previous week, to 666 million litres per day. At the same time last year, dam levels were sitting at 82%. And now the municipality added that the increasing dam levels over the recent weeks are being taken into account in terms of which water restrictions and tariffs will apply over the summer months. Now the Metro further said that the final decisions will be made in consultation with the National Department of Water and Sanitation, who will take the lead in planning for the new year, and other municipalities in irrigation boards, with which whom are those that the city shares the dam with. Dams are close to full, of course, and the city of Cape Town has been fielding numerous queries around what this means in terms of water restrictions and especially water tariffs. Now, of course, we are going to be taking a very short break. When we're coming back, we've got more news and updates for you. And of course, we are going to go through your social media platforms. We can see that we've got Mishak, we've got Zach, we've got Shadrach and Musa, and we've also been joined by Yolis that have dropped their messages on our social media platforms. Please to stay with us as we're going to come back and give you more news and updates for you right here on Pan African Morning. Welcome back again. If you have just joined us, we welcome you as the Radio on Pan African Morning. And thank you so much for joining us. If you have just joined us, as I said earlier on, that we are going to be reading through your social media messages that you're sending to us here as soon as they get back onto my screen. Of course, I'm going to be waiting for my technical team to show me those messages once more on my tablet so that I can go through them. A very quick one as we continue with our stories. Of course, the Corruption Watch says that most of the reported corruption activities occurred during the lockdown period. The organization also noted an increase in education and healthcare system, which it is related to corruption cases. Now, the health corruption encountered 4% of the reports of the corruption revealed, and 39% employment irregularities topped the list. Now, whistleblowers reported that vacancies in the sector are designed to favor officials' preferred candidates. Now, procurement irregularities accounted for 14% of the cases relating to the healthcare corruption by senior officials. Now, the group of the Civil Group released its annual report on corruption trends earlier on yesterday, of course. And now the Corruption Watch researcher Malusi Ngala said that in their recent set of data, there has been an increase in corruption compared to last year. And much of that is during the period of the lockdown. He added that 55% of these reports of corruption were received during the lockdown period.
Also, worthy of noting when we talk about police corruption is that, you know, there is a dereliction of duty. What we mean by that is that the kind of cronyism that manifests in the police sector is such that police protect each other. So when a member of the public goes and complains about an officer who has been corrupt or performed or did something that's illegal, his superiors or her superiors are not necessarily willing to investigate and take the matter.
Now, we have already received, of course, the messages here. We've got a message from Yulisa, who says that she's listening with us. And, of course, we've got yet another message from Mishak Malaji, one of our regular viewers there, who says that, morning, everyone. Good morning to you too, Mishak. And, of course, we have a message here from Musa Maholo, who says, good job. The NC need MPs like her. I think here she is, of course, referring to the story of Patricia de Lille. And of course, when we move into another one, we've got Zach J. Zach. He says, good morning, good people. Good morning to you too, Zach. And Mishak. Mishak says, good morning, Pan-African morning from Limpopo. Sawubona, abusheni lapho eLimpopo, Shadrach. As we continue with our story, as we continue here as the center, the police in Cameroon used tear gas and water cannon to break up a protest by hundreds of people in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala, calling for an end to bloodshed in the country's Anglophone regions. Now, several parties, including that of opposition leader Maurice Kanto, said that they called for peaceful marches against President Paul Biya, an 87-year-old man who has ruled the Central African country with an iron fist for nearly 40 years. The marches called for ceasefire and negotiations to end a long-running conflict between Anglophone separatists, of course, and the security forces that has claimed more than 3,000 people's lives. Protesters also sought a reform to the electoral system. They covered, or rather converged, at the major intersections in the working class districts of Douala, shouting slogans such as enough is enough and Paul Biya must go before the police dispersed them, making some arrests, of course. And now the police and soldiers had taken up the positions in several cities in the night before. As we continue with our stories, a mass die-off among elephants in Botswana, now at 330 according to the official count, was due to the toxins that were created by algae in the watering holes, the government of the country now have said. Now, as I quote, mortality event characteristics and the field clinical postmortem, histopathological and laboratory findings suggested that the elephants died from a neurotoxic Cyanobacterium blue-green alga toxicus associated with a toxic bloom of Cyanobacterium is seasonal parents in the region, said the acting director of Botswana's Department of Wildlife and National Parks, Cyril Tayolo. Many questions remained, including why only elephants were affected, but the evidence that fits the neurological symptoms observed of apparently confused elephants staggering around before dying. And of course, the Cyanobacteria explains that why the death stopped when seasonal dinkering holes dried up. Now,
Botswana is home to 1/3 of Africa's entire elephant population. They're a huge asset to the country's tourist industry, and the deaths of some 330 of the gentle giants earlier this year was described as a conservation disaster. After months of research, scientists now say they have discovered the reason behind the tragedy.
A diagnosis of neurotoxic cyanobacterial poisoning from seasonal water plants has been made relating to the elephant mortality in Botswana that started April of this year.
Curiously, the elephants, along with a single horse, were the only species that were killed by the toxic blue-green algae in the water. Scavengers such as vultures and hyenas that feasted on the carcasses did not become ill. Scientists have speculated the reason the elephants were so adversely affected was because of the amount of time they spend drinking and wallowing in the water. They've also said the deaths are not linked to man-made causes such as poaching, anthrax or sabotage. Now the diagnosis has been made, the focus can turn towards preventing further deaths in the future.
Would like to apologize, of course, to our sensitive viewers for those very graphic images of the dying and the dead elephants, of course. And of course, we do apologize to have not been able to warn you prior to viewing those disturbing images. And now, just quickly, as we continue with the stories, of course, this very same story, it says that this leaves Botswana in intent on testing watering holes for the Cyanobacteria to prevent a repeat event in the future. Managing the danger has proven tricky, though, in South Africa. Some 50% of South Africa's dam host the blue-green algae that create toxin which can affect humans. That Cyanobacteria loves nutrient-rich water fed by sewage, of course, rather sewage and fertilizer runoff once established. It is very hard to get rid of this particular bacteria, and even treating the water to make it potable becomes quite very difficult. The toxic creating algae is also partial to warmer water, and climate change is expected to encourage its spread and bloom in southern Africa. Now, of course, we're going to jump a very quick one and read one of our comments from Tapiwa Diamond Chadia, who says that arise and shine, Sisanda, keeping us all informed. Paul Biya must fall. I think, of course, you know, he is referring to the story of Cameroon in there. We are going to catch up with you later on, Tapiwa, to hear your views on this one as we continue with our stories. Now, Liberian Laurent launches electoral anti-violence campaign with Liberian midterm senatorial elections scheduled for December in Liberia. Social activist and the country's Nobel Peace Prize winner, Loretaye Lema Roberta Gobe, launched a campaign against the election-related violence yesterday, of course, rather on Monday. The campaign will recruit hundreds of Liberian youth as peace ambassadors to reach out to their peers within within the local communities in the streets and places of religious worship in order to explore negative impact of engaging in violent activities on not just the nation, but also on their health, lives and the future. Now, the campaign will also have young peace ambassadors urged to with other youth to refuse payment from rival politicians who propagate violence, and will encourage voters to ask questions of political candidates seeking to be elected. Now, moving on to India. Now, the death toll from an apartment block collapse in the western India climbed to 20 yesterday. These whole bodies likely to be recovered, officials have confirmed. The rescuers search for survivors. Emergency workers from the National Disaster Response Force have pulled 20 survivors, including 2 boys aged 4 and 7 respectively, from the rubble of the building in Bhiwandi near Mumbai. And the NDRF, of course, a spokesperson told reporters that recovery teams aided by sniffer dogs also retrieved 20 bodies buried under layers of brick and concrete when the 3-story block came crashing down before the dawn on Monday. The NDRF Director General Satya Narayan Nadan tweeted that he expected the toll to increase, with more bodies likely under the debris. And of course, cause of the accident was not immediately clear, but the building collapses are common during India's June and September monsoon season, with old and rickety structures, or rather rickety structures, buckling after days of non-stop rain. NASA revealed its latest plan to return astronauts to the moon in 2024 and estimated the cost of meeting that deadline at $28 billion and $16 billion, of which will be spent on a lunar landing module. Congress, which faces, of course, the elections on November 3, will have to sign off on the financing for the project, and of course, that has been set by the President Donald Trump as the top priority. The $28 billion will cover the budgetary years of the 2021 to 2025. In a phone briefing with the journalists on Monday on the Artemis mission to return human beings to the moon, NASA Administrator Jim Brigerson noted that political risks were often the biggest threat to NASA's work, especially before such a crucial election. Barack Obama cancelled plans for a manned Mars mission after his predecessor spent billions of dollars on the project. Now, Brightstone said that there will be headlining to the South Pole very, very soon, and 3 different projects are in the competition to build a lunar lander that will carry 2 astronauts, one of them a woman, to the moon from their vessel Orion. The first one is being developed by Blue Origin, founded by Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, on the partnership with Lockheed Martin Northrop, and of course Grumman and as well as Draper. Now, the two projects are being, of course, undertaken by Elon Musk, SpaceX, and by the company called Dynetics. And the first flight, Artemis, is, of course, scheduled for November of 2021, will be unnamed. The new giant rocket SLS currently is in its test phase, will take off for the first time with the Orion capsule. Now, Artemis II in the 2023 will take astronauts around the moon, but will not land.
Watching Apollo footage of astronauts doing geology on the surface of the moon is a really great way to think about preparing for Artemis, for putting people on the lunar surface once again. We learn a lot in how they did science operations on the moon and what it's like to work on the moon. You see them doing geology. You see them taking rock samples, putting in a drive tube to take a core sample. You see them bouncing along the surface of the moon on the lunar rover that they used in Apollo 15 through 17. So it's a great way to help drive technology development for the next generation of spacesuits and geology sampling tools.
There's these facilities that help us train like we are on the lunar surface. You know, these 1.6G offload systems or putting people in the aquatic environment are great ways to train the mobility part, right? Like, what can you do and how different does it feel to be in 1.6G and do these tasks?
We've been training astronauts in geology and geoscience for decades now. The Apollo astronauts had literally hundreds of hours of training in geology before they flew to the moon. It's often said that the Apollo astronauts had the equivalent of a master's degree in geology by the time they flew to the moon. In the intervening decades since Apollo, we've been training astronauts who fly to the International Space Station because when they're on the ISS, they spend time observing the Earth, looking out the window, taking pictures of what they see on the Earth's surface.
Now, South African cricket is facing financial ruin unless it can get approval from the national government to host international teams this summer. Hundreds of millions of rands could be lost in the sport if the government does not approve a short tour to the country by the current World 50 Overs champions in England in November. Of course, it is not just the absence of the tour itself, which in that case could lead to losses of close to 67 million rands. But the knock-on effect it could have, which would push the financial losses for Cricket SA, will be beyond 100 million rands. There is a growing anxiety with the Cricket SA about the possibility of England tour set to comprise three T20 and 3 one-day internationals not receiving government approval in time. The highly placed sources at Cricket SA says that they have outlined how on numerous occasions the organization has written to Sports Minister Nathi Mthethwa seeking clarity about the tour, but no response has been forthcoming despite President Cyril Ramaphosa's announcement on easing the lockdown measures to level 1 last week. Cricket SA has informed the Minister's office about its plans to host the England team in a biosecure bubble at the hotel in Paarl. Not only would the travelling party understood to be in the region of 40 individuals, including players and support staff, be in quarantine, but the hotel in which it is scheduled to stay also won't be occupied by anyone else. All training will take place within the biosecure environment. It's time for us to take a very short break. When we're coming back, we've got more news and updates for you right here on Pan African Morning. Please do stay with us.
Tech Talk brought to you by Tamani Technologies and Systems. Tamani Technologies and Systems takes leadership in fourth industrial revolution. The whole world is facing a transformation. The revolution will be developed into the following stages: digitization, cyber security, Internet of Things, managed services, document management, and business applications. We provide business transformation and ICT solutions with presence in 13 African countries and 2 European countries. We are your leading partner in integrated platform providers, innovation leaders, standalone products, and innovation pace setters. Tamani Technologies and Systems, delivering value across continents.
Hello. The fourth industrial technology era has forcefully changed how every profession has been working for its clients. The world has become smaller than what we used to think. Imagine the ease of talking to a person who is in Australia, China, or Germany while you are in South Africa, as if you're just next door. The ease that globalization and the fourth industrial technology have brought to humanity entail doing business anywhere in the world as long as you have the purpose and the means. It is our expertise as MB Chabangu Incorporated to advise clients immigrating to South Africa on various permits and on opportunities for travelers who intend to sojourn in South Africa for a longer period of time.
Ayé náà ti kéré ju èyí tí a rò lọ nítorí náà ìmọ̀ wa ní ìsìlọ̀ àti òfin àgbáyé ṣe wá ní ọ́fíìsì àkókò lórí àwọn ìṣòwò ilé àti ìgbaniláyé láti gba ìwé ìrìnnà fún iṣẹ́ okòwò.
Ho MB Chabangu Incorporated re ba eletsi dinotari le basebedisi le di ofisi tsa rena kwa Pretoria, Johannesburg le Bloemfontein. MB Chabangu Incorporated e humanega ga bonolo go bareki ba rena. Go humana tlhagiso leseding ka botlalo re kgopela le re leletše mogala go 012 341 4187 goba le re ngwalele lengwalo tsebile go admin@chabangu.co.za. MB Chabangu Incorporated mo mathata a humanago tharollo.